Next, we have a game with potential for lots of fireworks. We have the Atlanta Falcons at the Dallas Cowboys. Let's kick it off with the injuries. The only relevant one on either side is Julio Jones is limited. It's really not that serious. Julio is limited almost each and every week. That guy doesn't need to practice, so I wouldn't be too concerned. If we roll through Friday, maybe Saturday, and he doesn't participate, that's when you start worrying, but always got to monitor it. You never know what can happen when a guy's on the injury report. So Julio limited right now. Wouldn't be concerned, but make sure you're monitoring that. Let's start with the QBs now. I'll start off with Dak Prescott. Dak is my number one rated QB this week. The Falcons secondary was terrible. I've been saying it all off season. I'm going to say it now that we're in season, and they proved me right in week one, even though it's Russell Wilson. Still, they look terrible. Russell Wilson had a big game. Dak should be able to take advantage of this secondary, especially with all his weapons. So I think Dak is in for a big week. And when you look at Matt Ryan, if this secondary continues to struggle each and every week, he's going to be a play. I mean, they're going to be playing from behind. They're going to have to pass the ball. Negative game script for the Falcons. Positive game script for us fantasy owners that have Matt Ryan. So I like Matt Ryan this season just based on his volume alone. He'll most likely, if I had to put my money on it, lead the league in passing attempts this year. I've been saying that for months, and I'm not going to shy away from it now. Todd Gurley on the ground for the Falcons. Now, the Cowboys looked pretty vulnerable last week against the Rams. We saw Malcolm Brown have over 100 scrimmage yards. They really pounded the ball down the Cowboys' throat. So I think Todd Gurley, based on his volume alone, is a solid RB2 play. And I've said this before, but who's taking touches from Todd Gurley? Brian Hill? No. Ito Smith? No. Quadri Olson? Nope. It's Todd Gurley's backfield. So on volume alone, you're playing him. The Cowboys are a pretty solid matchup. He's an RB2. Set him in there. Don't worry about it. On the other end, Zeke. I mean, do I need to really break down Zeke? I mean, I think the Falcons' front seven is better than their secondary, but once again, Zeke is the most consistent top five running back in the NFL. When you look at his weeks, week in and week out, he's a factor. So what do you want me to say? You're playing Zeke, and if you're not, then you have, I don't even know who's on your roster, Saquon and Christian McCaffrey, and I don't even know because you're playing Zeke still. So I mean, if you play, you can play three running backs. So you're playing Zeke. What are we talking about? Let's move over to the wide receivers here. I mentioned it, the Falcons secondary stinks, so all the Cowboys wide receivers are in play this week. I have Amari Cooper ranked as my third wide receiver this week. I mean, the Falcons secondary proved to be very vulnerable down the field. So, I mean, Amari Cooper is a downfield threat, as is Michael Gallup. Both of them against the secondary are plug and play. I'm playing CeeDee Lamb as well. I think CeeDee Lamb had a really nice week one. He had consistent volume. He had 6 targets for the game. He had a 85% snap rate. 91% of those snaps he played in the slot. So he's the Cowboys slot man. There's no doubting that. We saw Russell Gage in the slot take advantage. We saw a big week last week from some slot guys like Russell Gage. So I think CeeDee Lamb could be in for a nice week. The Seahawks had Tyler Lockett primarily in the slot last week, who had a nice game against the Falcons. So same with CeeDee Lamb. I think he'll take advantage. I think this game's going to be a shootout. Lots of points all over the place for everybody. So CeeDee Lamb, I like him. Throw him in there as your wide receiver 3. I'd even play him as a flex in PPR leagues. So let's roll with him. On the other end, Julio and Ridley, I'm not going to talk too much about them. I mean, I think the Cowboys secondary is susceptible to allowing big plays. The Rams didn't really take advantage last week. They were doing a lot of bootlegs, a lot of shorter passes. But I think Julio and Ridley can take advantage of this vulnerable Cowboys secondary that lost Byron Jones. So not much to talk about. Both of these guys are top 10 plays. For the tight ends, Dalton Schultz for the Cowboys, taking over for Blake Jarwin after tearing his ACL out for the season. Not trusting his role yet. He's the fifth option in this past game. You'll hear me say that quite a bit when you hear me break down games, but you can play those guys, and yeah, maybe you'll get lucky and they have a big game, but part of setting your lineup is determining the risk versus the reward. And I'm not playing a tight end that's the fifth option in this offense, even against a very vulnerable Falcons defense. So I'm not playing Dalton Schultz, bottom line. Hayden Hurst on the other side, interesting. It's very interesting. I know a lot of people are already giving up on him. I'm not personally. I throw him in here. I think I mentioned this is going to be a game with a lot of fireworks. I think the Falcons are going to have to pass the ball quite a bit because they'll most likely be down. They'll probably, similar to last week, they'll start off Todd Gurley, lots of volume, has a nice game, and then all of a sudden they start falling behind and they're going to have to pass more. So I like Hayden Hurst as a third option in this passing offense. Wasn't the third option in week one. Russell Gage was, but I don't expect Matt Ryan to have 54 pass attempts every week. I expect him to have a lot, but 54 was tied for this man's career high, and he's had a very long career thus far. So I don't, if you say he has more close to 44, you take away 10 attempts. Maybe you take away 6 targets from Russell Gage, a few from everybody else. I think Hayden Hurst is still the third option, so I'm not buying into the Russell Gage hype quite yet. It's possible that Russell Gage is the third option, but I don't think that the Falcons went out of their way to acquire Hayden Hurst not to use him. So I'm not giving up on him yet. I think there's other top end options you can play over him if they're on your roster, but I think Hayden Hurst is still a back end tight end one at this point. Moving over to the kicker position, I mentioned this should be a high scoring game. Playing both of them, Young Hoku, Greg Zuerlein are top kicking options week in and week out. High scoring game, favorable weather conditions when you're playing in the Cowboys Dome. So, you're ready to rock and roll there. You're playing both of them. And then we'll finish it up with the defenses. You don't play defenses in shootouts. That's a reality. I'd be shocked if there wasn't a good amount of points scored in this game. So, not touching either one of these defenses.